Tonight I'm going to make some fajitas, so I wanted to show you my ingredients I was going to use first, and then I'll go through the steps with you. So I have some steak, I think it's a piece of sirloin, a pepper. Back here are marinated red onions. These are just some onions that I soaked in oil and red wine vinegar and oregano for a couple days, and they get really flavorful that way. There's Stonyfield or Greek yogurt. I use plain whole milk Greek yogurt instead of sour cream when I cook. It's got a little more protein, and it's a little healthier than sour cream. An avocado, this one's a little bit soft, so we'll see how much of it I can actually get out of there. Some mushrooms I'm going to throw in there. And then I have these great tortillas. These are Tortilla Land tortillas. I get them at Walmart. The reason I like them is because they are raw. They just have 5 ingredients. They're right over here. Wheat flour, water, canola oil, salt, and sugar. And they're all ingredients I can find in my cupboard, and so they're real foods. I don't like to buy the other tortillas, other kinds of tortillas, because they are full of preservatives and chemicals, and so I prefer this Tortilla Land brand. They are raw, so we will have to cook them, and I'll show you that step when we get there. And then there's some cilantro back there that I'm going to use to season. Oh, and I forgot a lime, so let me just grab a lime out of my fruit basket, because what's fajitas without a lime? So there's my ingredients that I'm going to use. So here's the steps to making fajitas. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut up my pepper, and I want to show you how I do that. So first I'm going to wash it off, just so that always wash your produce. All right, then when I cut a pepper, what I do is the 3 indents on it, or sometimes there's 4 indents on it, that's where the ribs are. That's the white part with the seeds that you don't want. So I kind of use my knife to go along the use it as a guide, and then I just cut really close to that part, and if you see, I cut off a perfect little piece, and I left the ribs inside. And then for the next piece, it gets a little harder because you want to cut along that rib, and then I cut along the bottom until I find the next rib, which is over here. And this is not really knife safety because this is, I'm trying to show you, but that's how I get around there. So this is my second piece of pepper. Oh, and there's a little bit growing inside. So that's another good one. I might trim that a little bit, and only 1 seed in there. You don't want to eat those seeds because they have a bad texture. And then this part, it's a little bit easier. I just run my knife through this way, obviously watching out for my fingers. And then you have all the seed pod right there, and that goes in the trash. And then I set up a little bit here I need to clean up. And then I'm going to tap the seeds out of here into my garbage. And then you have your pepper pieces, 3 nice pieces of pepper, and you don't have to do a lot more cleanup to them. So I'm just going to cut these into strips, and then I'm going to cut up the mushrooms as well. I'll do that on a time lapse so that you don't have to watch every boring step of this. So these are my veggies that are going to go in the frying pan first, and then as they're cooking, or once they start cooking, I will start cutting up the meat and add that too. So here we go. Okay, next I'm going to cut up the steak. If you notice, I have a wood cutting board here. I'm putting this plastic one down on top of it because the juices from the meat should not touch that cutting board because bacteria can grow on the wooden cutting board. And so I have the plastic one to help protect that wood cutting board and because of food safety. So here's my piece of steak. I'm just going to cut that into really thin slices. I also cut all my veggies first so that my knife, I can use it on the steak, and then I will wash it, and I won't use it again because we don't want to cross-contaminate with anything else. This is called mise en place, when you have everything ready to go. So I have everything cut up and ready to get started. And now I just turned it on a second before I started the video. I put a little avocado oil in my pan. It's on about medium. It looks like 6 from here. I'm going to heat the oil up while I'm talking to you, and then I'm going to add my veggies to it. Now I want to saute my vegetables. So I'm letting the oil get hot first, and then I'm going to put the vegetables in so that the vegetables cook. If you take your vegetables and you put them into this cold, well, not hot pan with cold oil in it, the oil's just going to get sucked up into the vegetables and you'll get soggy vegetables, and that's not what we want. I want them to crisp up and caramelize on the outside. While we're waiting for the oil to heat up, I just want to talk about the mushrooms. I don't know if you noticed when I was cutting those up that I just use a paper towel to wipe them off. Mushrooms are very sponge-like and they will soak up water. So if you wash them in water, they'll soak that up and it's not great for the mushrooms. So I just use a paper towel to wipe any mud or dirty spots off, and then you cut them up and use them that way. The other thing is when you put the mushrooms into your pan with your other veggies, if there's any moisture in the pan, a lot of times it will suck that up to start with because that's how they work. So if you put oil in your pan and then you put mushrooms in the pan, it's going to look really dry. And that's because they will suck up that oil. But then eventually, as they start to cook, they will release the oil or the moisture and oil again from them. So they tend to cook differently. You just need to know what's happening with that. I think I'm going to grab some garlic and I'm going to add that in too. And what else did I want to tell you about? I think that's all. So I'm going to wait for my oil to heat up. I'm going to grab out some seasonings that I'm going to use. Obviously, salt is going to be a big season in here. I use a Celtic sea salt, and otherwise that real salt in the back next to my hand soap. Real salt is another great one. It's by Redmond. So I will show you the cooking process. I'm going to start with the veggies first, and then the beef will go in last because beef doesn't take a long time to cook. If I was doing chicken fajita, I would probably do the chicken first because chicken takes a bit longer depending on how thawed it is and that sort of stuff. So there we go. Okay, so the oil's hot enough. You probably can't see this on the video, but it's hot enough when it starts to run like water in your pan. So the viscosity of the oil will change, and it will run a lot faster through your pan than it did. Just be careful not to spill. Than it did when you first poured it in. The other way you can tell it's done, I can start to smell it a little bit, and then I usually take one vegetable and put it in, and you want to hear it cooking. So you don't want it to ever saute and be silent, because then it's not really sauteing. So I put a piece of pepper in. If it sputters and spats and I can hear it cooking right away, then I know the oil is hot enough and I can proceed with the rest of the vegetables. So here we go. Let's see. You hear it cooking? So that's how you know it's ready. So I'm just going to grab the rest of my veggies and throw them in there. I'm going to wait. So there they go. And then I'm going to wait for the marinated onions and the garlic to go in a little bit closer to done, because the onions have the oil and vinegar in them already, so they're sort of soft already, and I don't want to overcook them. And then the garlic too. Garlic will burn at high temperatures really quickly, and I don't want it to burn, so I'll grab that out and that will go in as one of my last steps. So I'll time lapse the rest of it so it's not so boring for you. So the fajitas stuff is done. I put that aside so that it can, it's just hanging out over on the cupboard. And I wanted to quick do the tortillas for you or show you how I do those, talk about what seasonings that I put in, and we'll go from there. So I'm heating up the pan right now, and I'm going to stick a tortilla in. They look like this. They're sort of like doughy, and they stick together a little bit. So you peel one off. And it's just a dry frying pan. A nice nonstick pan works well. I got some seasonings in my lungs. All right, so I put the tortilla in, and we're just going to let that... All right, so I put a tortilla in the pan, and it's going to start to bubble and brown on one side. I'll flip it over, and it will bubble and brown on the other side, and then it'll be ready. While we're waiting for that to happen... I wanted to talk about the seasonings I used. So in the fajitas, I put some cumin. It's a very fragrant spice, and it's a good one for Mexican cooking. I use some chipotle chili. If you've never tried chipotles, they're like smoked jalapenos. And then they're put in like a tomato sauce. The flavor layers are amazing when you use that. I did a little bit of cayenne. I had some chili powder here that I used. I had way too much of it in my hand when I measured it, so I had to get rid of a bunch. And I also used paprika in there, along with, I think I put it away, this true lime seasoning. This is a crystallized lime flavor, and it just gives it a little bit of lime flavor to it. Sometimes I get one that's like a garlic cilantro lime, and that's really good too. Oh, that one's right here. I should have used that one instead. Lime, garlic, and cilantro. I don't know if you can read those or not. So those are the seasonings that I used when I made my fajita mix. It looked a little bit brown, and the pan looked a little messy, but when you're cooking at that temperature, sometimes that happens, and I will just wash it out later. So you can see my tortilla starting to bubble a little bit. I'm going to flip it over, and you'll see that it was browning. It's going to go way faster on the second side. The pan is hot enough now that they'll cook faster. So I'm going to cook a couple of those, and then I'm going to eat my fajitas. For my two fajitas, I put a little slices of avocado on them. I have this cilantro that I have a video on that I shared with you, or I will share with you, about how to store or preserve your fresh herbs. And then I just have this herb scissors. It's got like 3 tines on it. And this is how I cut up my herbs. I'll just stick them in there and give them a couple of cuts. You don't want to use the thick stems on there, just the fine stems at the top of the leaves are fine. The thicker ones at the bottom don't always have like a great flavor. So let's get these all out of here. And then I'm going to use my Greek yogurt. I'll just do a little dollop on each one to give a little sour cream flavor. I put a lot of that chipotle in, so it might be a little spicy. So between the avocado and the Greek yogurt, that should help. So there you have it, my finished fajitas. I'm going to eat them. Fig, my dog, needs to be let out because she's crying by the door. So I'll take care of that. I hope you're having a great night, and that's what I made today. Okay, so I just got done eating my fajitas, and a couple of notes. If I were to do them again, I squeezed an entire lime, and it was a really big lime in there, so it's almost too limey. So I would either cut back on the lime granules that I used, it was like a powder, or I would just use half a lime. And the chipotle was a little too strong for me, so I would do less chipotle next time. So that's my feedback on how the fajitas turned out. Otherwise, they were pretty good. So that's all. Hope you're having a great day. Bye.